Now I bet that you've been told that the dinosaurs died out a long time ago. And you know, for the most part, that's true. But when I was a little boy, I had a pet dinosaur. And I'll tell you how it happened. You see, one day, me and my cousins and brothers were playing down in the swamp when all at once we saw something white lying over there in the muck. And we went over and looked at it, and don't you know, it was a great big brown and white spotted egg. And it was lying in an old spring there. And you know, it was a dinosaur egg. And it was 1,000,000 years old. It had been lying in the cold water of that spring for 1,000,000 years, and that cold water had kept that egg fresh. Well, we took it to the house, and my granny put it under 12 of her best old setting hens, and you know, in about 6 weeks, that egg began to hatch. And we heard the chickens going, bark, 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 bark. And we ran out to the chicken house, and don't you know, out of that egg hatched the prettiest little pink and purple dinosaur you've ever seen. He was beautiful. He had little green horns and little red spikes on his back, and the tip of his tail was yellow. But for the most part, he was pink and purple. And we named him right then. We called him Pinky. Well, little Pinky thought he was a chicken because he had been hatched by chickens, and we left him in the chicken house, and he began to grow bigger and bigger, till finally he broke down all the perches in the chicken house, and he'd jump up on the top of the chicken house and crow with the other roosters, till finally he broke down the entire chicken house. Well, we at that time decided we had to do something with him, so we brought him up to the house and let him live on the porch with the dogs. And after a while, Pinky began to think he was a dog, and he would bark when people came up, and he even took to chasing cars down the road. Well, he caught an old pickup truck and buried it in the backyard, and once in a while he'd dig it up and chew on it. Well, he's getting bigger and bigger all the time. And finally, after about a year, Pinky started laying eggs. And at that time, we realized that our little dinosaur Pinky was a female dinosaur. Well, we were getting these huge dinosaur eggs, and one of them was big enough to feed the entire family for a week. So we had eggs to sell. So we put a little sign down by the road that said, eggs for sale, $21 a dozen. Well, we didn't get much business. Most people didn't stop. They seemed to think that $21 a dozen was too much for eggs. They didn't know how big those eggs were. Till finally, one day the preacher stopped by, and he said, I've never seen an egg that was worth $21 a dozen. What are you people doing? Stealing from people and robbing them blind. And we said, well, just a minute, preacher, we'll show you one of these eggs. So we went in the back and we put one of those eggs in a wheelbarrow and we rolled it out there for him to see. Well, when he saw that egg, his eyes got nearly as big as that egg, and he said, never mind the egg. I just want to know what you've been feeding those chickens. Well, sir, we played with old Pinky around the farm. We made a nice big old wagon for him to pull, and any time that we had to dig a ditch, we'd get Pinky to come out there and root it up for us. It saved us a lot of work. We were plowing the ground with him. We were doing all sorts of stuff, dragging up big logs for firewood. He was very useful, but he was eating us out of farm and home. Till finally one day Granny said, this place is not big enough for you and us and that dinosaur. I think it's about time for you children to take that dinosaur up in the woods and turn him loose. So we took our little old dinosaur Pinky up in the woods, and we turned her loose. It made us very sad, and we were all broken-hearted, but we knew Pinky needed to be out in the woods by herself. And you know, sometimes late at night in the wintertime, we'll hear something back in the mountains that sounds like boo, and we know it's our little dinosaur Pinky. And when you ride along the road sometime and you see the tops of those trees that are broken off, that's where our little dinosaur Pinky has been eating treetops. So there is still one little dinosaur out there somewhere.